So, you're just starting out with JavaScript, and let's be real, it can feel like a lot to take in. That's why today we're going to skip the endless syntax memorization. Instead, we're going to build your first mental model, just a way of thinking about the language so you actually feel confident enough to start writing some code. Let's dive in. And really, this is the core philosophy for everything we're about to cover. You can read all the theory in the world, but with a language like JavaScript, nothing, and I mean nothing, beats getting your hands dirty and actually seeing your code come to life. So, let's be super clear about our goal here. This isn't going to be some exhaustive dictionary of every single JavaScript feature out there. No way. Think of this more like a guided tour of the landscape. We're here to hit the major landmarks and help you build a solid mental framework so you can go off and write your own stuff with confidence. Okay, so how do we actually build that foundation? Well, it all starts with having a smart strategy for learning. And I'm going to give you a 3-step approach you can start using like right now. Here are the 3 big ones. First, and this is crucial, take your time. Seriously, resist that urge to just blitz through everything. Second, when you run into a new concept, don't just read the definition, ponder it, explore it, open up a code editor and just play around with it. And third, compare what you're learning to code that's already out there in the real world. See how the pros are using these exact same concepts. You know, it's kind of like an iceberg. Memorizing the syntax, the keywords, the semicolons, that's just the tiny tip you see above the water. The real power, the massive part underneath, comes from understanding JavaScript's nature, how it thinks, how it behaves. That is what separates someone who just knows the rules from someone who can actually solve problems. All right, let's put that strategy into practice with a core concept that might actually surprise you. This is one of those fundamental ideas that once it clicks, totally changes how you look at your code. Here it is. When your web browser loads up a website that has, say, 10 different JavaScript files, the engine doesn't see one giant application. It actually sees each individual .js file as its own separate program. And this is where it gets pretty interesting. To you, the user, a website feels like one big seamless application, right? But underneath the hood, from JavaScript's point of view, it's actually looking at a whole bunch of small, independent programs that are all just cooperating with each other to create that smooth experience. And that's the big question, isn't it? If it all seems to work in the end, who cares how JavaScript sees it? Well, it turns out this little distinction has some really important practical consequences. It all comes down to error handling. See, because each file is its own program, a big show-stopping error in one file won't necessarily stop the next file from running. The browser will try its best to keep going, but this usually means your app is now in a broken, only partially working state. And understanding this behavior is key. So, if they're all separate, how do they work together? Well, they communicate through a shared space called the global scope. Think of it like a public whiteboard. One script can walk up and write a piece of information on the board, and any other script that comes along after it can read and use that same information. Now, a quick heads up for modern development. A lot of developers use something called build tools, and what these do is take all those separate files and smush them together into one giant file for the browser. And in that case, JavaScript's rules still applies. It just sees that one massive file as the one single program. And with that, your journey really does start now. Just understanding that one core concept, that each file is its own program, is like laying the first solid brick in your foundation. It's a piece you can now build on with confidence. And that's the whole takeaway here. We've just looked at one piece of a much larger puzzle. The way forward is to grab the next piece, and then the one after that, and to lock it all in by doing exactly what we said at the start, writing code. That is how you build a foundation that actually lasts. So, I'll leave you with a question. You've now got a new piece for your mental model and a strategy for learning more. The rest of the journey is yours. So, what are you going to explore first?